Welcome to the Comic Fiends Comic Friends. This week, I've got my friend, Thief. Grant, is that right? Is that what I'm going to go with? I mean, it's your Twitter handle, so.
Yeah, that's fine.
Good. Excellent. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So I've been listening to the Blade Looking Thieves, and I was like, you know what? He does podcasts. Maybe he'd be cool to hop on and talk to me a little bit. Like,
a dangerous mistake you've made, my friend.
I don't know. It might work out. I'm totally in control here, so I feel like I'm safe, but maybe I'm wrong. Yeah.
Much like Jurassic Park, you think you can contain the beast, but nature finds a way.
All right.
No, glad to be here though. Glad to be here. And this is a little. I don't usually get to talk. We talk comics occasionally. We try to have a couple of ground rules on my home pod, like no Star Wars, no comics. I try to keep. I mean, we already meander so much. We try to have a few no-go zones, so it's nice to talk comics.
I mean, hey, yeah, that's cool. I try to be broad about this, so we're gonna hopefully cover a lot of ground, or open it up to just whatever you're interested in. So.
Sure.
First and foremost, what kind of comics do you read?
For most of my life, and still now, I'm pretty basic. I usually, for most of my life, read the big two stuff, your Marvels and your DCs. And I still read a fair amount of that, but I've never, only for a brief period, did I really ever have a pull list. I've always been a trade guy. I really enjoy trades or omnibuses, or I guess omnibuy. Just big collections that I can sit down, read at my pace. I hate advertisements between pages. It really, really upsets me.
I know the feeling.
So
yeah,
single issues and the long box storage just doesn't do it for me.
Yeah.
And probably too because one of my most formative early comic experiences was with a trade. My mother got a comic for me. I don't. It's not one of those things where like, oh, it was the very first thing I ever got, but it was one of the first comics that I got, and it was a DC trade called Panic in the Sky that was a big, I want to say it had Jurgens art. Now I don't remember. But the sort of the premise of it was that Brainiac is attacking and Maxima's with him, and all these DC heroes have to get together. Yeah, it was Dan Jurgens was the writer, and Roger Stern as well. And Jurgens did some of the art. But it was a really distinctive time, and like that. Like as a kid, having one book that had all these different heroes in it was kind of like big bang for my buck at the time. It's like I got one comic, I get to see Batman and Superman and all these other characters in it. So I've always really liked trades, just for kind of like the, get a couple of trades, collect a run, and then go from there. But here lately, I'm still reading. I'll pick up my occasional trade from the big two, but I have such a big backlog with that. I've been trying to branch out more. Probably the biggest ones I'm reading, I'm collecting the Judge Dredd complete case files from 2000 AD. Those are really, really nice. They do like an entire year's worth of progs in one big black and white omnibus. I'm not sure if you've read any Judge Dredd or if you know the format very well.
Unfortunately, not yet.
But
I
highly recommend it. The thing about Judge Dredd is that it's been in every 2000 AD is sort of like it's a monthly, or no, I take that back. It's I think it's a weekly magazine that has lots of little stories in it.
Huh.
So like in a month there will be like 4 of them, for example, and each one of them will have like a 6-page, like multiple like 5 to 7 or 8-page stories in them generally. So like most Judge Dredd stories, like in 1 month, if they did like 4 progs, that would be like kind of one standard American comic book. But sometimes they might just do like 4 little 6-page stories, and they're all kind of episodic.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's really cool, and it's all black and white line art for the most part up until about around the 90s. They start doing full color too on some issues, but just really well written, and really it's kind of a bizarre ride to go with Dredd from 20, 30 years ago and follow him all the way up.
Is that still coming out, or is this wow? Jeez.
Yes, it's still ongoing, and there's an IDW run out right now too that I read a few issues of, but I haven't really followed. I'm trying to just track with the complete case files because I really enjoy those, and it's been an interesting evolution because Judge Dredd he's got a 20+ year, what did they come out in 79 or 80, I want to say, because I think the joke was the reason they called the magazine 2000 AD is because they were like, well, let's call it something futuristic because the magazine will be dead and buried by then.
I love it.
But
it's short-term future
Yeah.
That seems impossible, and then suddenly it's 2018, and we do not have the flying cars.
Right. But the interesting thing is that it's all, I mean, obviously there's a bit of high technology in the setting that makes people able to live longer, but it's basically still the same story. It's still the same dread. And like at the place I'm at now, about 15 or 16 years into the run, every couple of progs, they'll introduce a story where it's just like Dread's getting older. He's, maybe he's 0.2 seconds slower than he used to be or whatever. So it's been really interesting to follow the same thread and watch it evolve from this sort of British punk violence fantasy exploration thing to sort of like a world that's now almost kind of like dealing with the consequences of that fantasy violence, I think is the best way to put it.
Wow.
So it's a really great run, and I've really been enjoying that. And because each year is about 20, it's a big thick multi-hundred page book for $20 full price, and 15 or 13 off Amazon. It's a pretty affordable, and they do like 2 a year. Pretty affordable thing to collect.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, that's a really good run. I've been reading. I really enjoy the IDW Transformers stuff, like Robots in Disguise and More Than Meets the Eye.
Yes, I've heard that those are really good. I think I got a bundle on, like Humble Bundle did like a huge drop of them.
Yes, I got that as well. And you have a lot of those.
I have them.
Yes,
you
archived. desperately need to read them. Now, I've actually not read a lot of I don't know how familiar you are with Transformers comics, actually.
My
of those things, right?
Is the purchase. I've made the purchase, and that is as far as I've gone.
Well, here's another fun history lesson, I guess. So the original Marvel Comics run in the 80s is kind of all over the place. Bob Budiansky did a lot of really good work on it and sort of formulating the world, him and Shooter. Shooter was kind of editorializing a little bit, or being editor on that, and did a lot to really formulate the world and kind of set the characters and the tone. But then the middle of the run is really variable in quality to the point that it's often bad.
Ooh.
But then the Marvel UK had a writer, Simon Furman, and they brought him over around, I don't know, it was supposed to be they always joke it was a 4-part miniseries, but it ended up being like a 100 or an 80 something issue comic run. But somewhere around the 57 or 58 mark, they brought Simon over, and Simon Furman just like, he kind of like in the same way that I guess the 86 Transformers movie kind of like opened the scope of that setting up like in a huge way. You're like, whoa, they can tell all kinds of weird stories with these crazy characters, even if having Rodimus Prime lead the Autobots is a really bad decision. But the sort of sense that the world was a lot bigger than just their Energon fight on Earth, Simon Furman really like. There's just this noticeable quality jump in those last like 20 or 30 issues, and it's really, really incredible. That's like some of my favorite comics ever.
Wow!
But IDW brought him back and did most of like the collection that you have.
Mm-hmm.
I think he starts their run, and then it goes for a while, and then they hit phase 2, and phase 2 is where I haven't read the phase 1 stuff. I missed a lot of that because I was in college and had even less money than I have now, which is shocking. But the phase 2 stuff that starts with like Robots in Disguise and More Than Meets the Eye, it's going to drive me crazy. I can't think of his name right now. Maybe it's not James Robinson. Maybe it is James Robinson. I follow him on Twitter. I can't remember right now, but he is just a phenomenal writer, and the art is really incredible. And it's the Transformers that you want. You got rectangles with primary colors on them so you can tell them apart. It's not like the Bayformers throw a bunch of, work shed tools in a blender and watch them fly around or whatever's going on in those films. So it's really evocative art, really, really well written, and it's just kind of the best form for that material, really. So I really enjoy that too.
Is this I've taken a look over some of it, and I remember there being a lot of it is a focus on, I think, Megatron's redemption. Am I thinking of the right thing, or is this like way later?
No, that is part of it.
Okay.
Again, I'm mostly the first, like I've read about the first 5, because like the weird thing about how they did phase 2 was you sort of have like Robots in Disguise and More Than Meets the Eye are 2 comic runs that are running parallel.
Oh, okay.
And I've read them together through like the first 5 volumes that I have physically, but then I got that collection, and my hope is to like read the whole thing all the way through.
Right.
But it's really good stuff. Like Last Stand of the Wreckers and All Hail Megatron, just some really it's what you keep kind of pining for that IP to be, really. So I can't recommend that highly enough. And then in terms of comics, the other thing that the biggest standout for me, other than a few little things here and there that I'm messing around with. No, I guess there's two others. I'm sorry. A new minor I shouldn't say minor, but it's a recent love. And again, I'm a trades guy, so I'm still waiting for him to come out. But are you familiar with Kaiju Max by Xander Cannon?
I am not. Just based on the title, it's a giant monster comic thing?
Yes, it's beautiful. Xander Cannon's a really good guy. We actually got to interview him last year, and probably one of like the highlights of my fandom. We got to interview him for the pod. He's a really, really good guy. Kaiju Max is a super interesting comic because the art style is he writes it, and he's the main artist on it and everything. So he's kind of a one-stop shop. He does. I'm trying to remember. He was saying that I don't know. Is it the inking he doesn't do? Now I can't recall. There's a few little bits where he has help, but by and large, it's a single project done just by him, kind of full stop. But the art style is quite adorable, and if you look at it, you think, look at this cutesy little comic about giant monsters. Like, I bet this is for children. It is not. The art style,
the Max in the title suggests otherwise.
Yes, it is literally the premise is that you sort of have like like a Monster Island, like your Showa era Godzilla stuff.
Sure.
But this Monster Island is a prison for giant monsters, and the prison is giant monster scaled, and all of like the wardens and the guards are like Ultraman style, like they're little guys, but they'll go into Ultraman form so they can like walk the prison, and it's very similar to Oz. Like, it's a prison narrative, it's a prison drama with almost all the same things you would expect. I got family on the outside, or like the drug rings that are the economy on the inside.
Sorry, what?
Deals.
What?
Yes, all the prison narratives, all the really hard, really tough stuff. Like it can be funny, it can be incredibly emotional, it can be hard hitting. Like, some stuff happens in it that I'm like, again, and it's a precious looking book about these sweet little giant monsters, but they are like, some of the stuff that goes down is it's hard to take. Do not let your children read it, but it is absolutely one of the best books I think on the shelves. And I don't read a lot, but it's one of those things, like, it's just, the ring of quality is there. And I think the third volume comes out in the next 4 months or so. I'm a huge fan of that work
so far.
Yes, and correct. There's only 2 trades out, I should say. It's a monthly thing, and I think Oni Press is doing it. And with most of their trades, I think the first one is like $9.99. So that was part of why I just took a leap of faith. I was like, $10. I mean, it's hard to get lunch for $10 sometimes. I was like, sure, I'll grab a thing about giant monsters. I love giant monsters. Sure. So yeah, I cannot recommend that enough.
Are you a big fan of the physical, needing the thing that you're holding in your hands while you're reading it, or are you? That's a fair question. Most of my life I've been a physical media guy, and I probably will be. I'll be a Dead Tree guy until they bury me in a box made of dead trees, probably. But I do like digital comics for the ease of use. I certainly like how certain comic apps like move you with the panels. Oh yes.
But there's something about, I certainly like, I'm probably a mix of both, but I'm probably 80-20 on the Dead Tree. The thing with Dead Tree is that obviously it costs more.
I may steal the Dead Tree thing from you, but maybe not.
Yeah.
It's not in my vernacular, but now it might be.
I wish I could say I'd coined that term, but yeah, Dead Tree format is it's my preferred. I think mainly because I really enjoy taking in like panel flow, like how the gutters are shaped, like, if there's like, maybe there's mirror formatting on pages, or I like to keep a thumb on one page and look back. And it's also kind of a limiter, because I think if my Steam library is any indication, it's very easy to buy a digital product and then forget that you have it.
Yeah.
So if I buy something physical and it sits on the shelf, it makes it so it's hard to put new things on the shelf. And I go, what the heck is all this stuff in the way? And I go, oh, these comics that I need to read. And so then I read them.
At least you do the follow-up. I actually have I'm sure everyone has their stack of to-do that are sitting right in front of me that I keep saying, I will.
That pile of shame, yeah.
That's, yep.
but yeah, I'm a big fan of the Dead Tree format, and I guess I mean, I love all those comics pretty dearly, but probably the one that I love the most out of all of them is Astro City, by Kurt Busiek.
I haven't talked to anybody. I've recommended it to friends.
Yeah,
I've just it never landed. I got people to read like a few issues of some.
Mm-hmm.
It's been so long. But Astro City, yeah,
Astro City.
I would love physical.
Yeah, that's a beautiful comic series, and it's sort of I mean, but just it's one of those that it reminds me of why I got into comics as a kid, like why. I guess I always sort of sell it as the antithesis to your Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns or your Alan Moore's Watchmen's. Like, I mean, I certainly enjoy those books, especially as has kind of a historical point for Cape Comics. But those are very much deconstructions that make you go like, why did you ever like this stuff? It's for kids.
Yeah.
Like, what were you ever thinking?
It's nice to be optimistic, right? It's nice to be a little bit hopeful.
Right. And Astro City makes you go, no, this is why you like them as a kid. The sort of the promise and the hope and the imagination, and the whimsy is not necessarily a childish thing, that it can be just as important and powerful a storytelling tool as something that's gritty or dark, with quotey fingers in the air. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of Astro City. I can't get it. That's the only thing that I autofill. Like everything else, I'll wait and say, okay, it's coming out then. I'll wait and see, and budget and whatever. But like Astro City is I tell my local shop, like, have it for me. Just tell me when it arrives. Like Astro City is just too good. It's just such a good book.
I think I'm on issue like 32. It's been a while since I've kept up with it, but I feel like after this I'm gonna go, like, that might be a priority, followed maybe by Kaiju Max. Like,
yeah, I mean, any of the comics I suggested, and obviously because I have such an exquisite taste, no, but you can't go wrong with Astro City.
You've fallen into my trap is what's happened here. This is actually a way I trick people into recommending things.
But you can't go wrong with either of those books, especially because the Kaiju Max. I mean, most of Oni Press stuff, at $10 is a pretty easy buy-in, and I think both of those books just get better. They age like wine. I've reread the Astro City run. The other benefit of a physical media being more expensive is that you are forced to go back and reread stuff because you can't afford new stuff.
That's fair. Yeah.
So I've reread the Astro City run a couple times, and I'm always noticing new things. It's just such a meticulously, wonderfully put together series. I really, really enjoy it.
That's first on my list.
Yeah. It's really good stuff. And of course, there's Alex Ross covers.
It's the only thing that's painful about them is that it's just Alex Ross is just doing the covers. Like, I understand. I get it. It's, we wouldn't get any issues. It would take much longer to get issues out if he was doing the inside work. But
I go back and forth on that.
It's okay.
Because like on the one hand, I would love that, and have, because like Kurt wrote what was it, Marvels, and that has that kind of pseudo historical feel because they call that Alex Ross art, or Kingdom Come, obviously the sort of standout. Alex Ross did all the art for this, and I love those things, but they sort of have they're almost a little too mythic, almost a little too heroic for what Astro City does. I think, even though I think it's important that he does the covers and just the covers, because even though, I mean, look, don't get me wrong, if you were like, hey, Alex Ross is just going to do all these oil paintings of Astro City for forever, I'm not going to shed a single tear. Yeah. But because so many of those stories
take half a year to get each issue. You're only getting 2 issues a year now. I'm sorry.
Oh no.
What a shame. My poor wallet.
Yeah, right.
Also, they'll be double the price because
yes, they would.
Money back.
Right. But I think because so many of the stories focus on common people and like average people in Astro City, that I don't know if Alex Ross's style would play that off quite right.
That's a good point.
And especially because so many of the characters are so bizarre. Like it's one. It would be so weird because like there's like a story. I forget what the character's name is. He's kind of like a Pink Panther style character. He's like a living cartoon lion that like works in these like kind of. He's in this like old Hollywood ring type thing, like 30s and 40s type stuff.
I can't remember his name either, but yes.
I can't. Yeah, but like he like imagine trying to do him in the Alex Ross style. Like I just don't think it would work.
Yeah.
But by having all the other characters sort of not on a lower level, but on a more kind of standard comic book look, it's not as insane to have a living cartoon character right next to them. It like kind of evens that out a little bit, I think.
It'd kind of be like Tawny the tiger showing up in Kingdom Come, which I'm pretty sure didn't at all. But like Tawny, like Saturday morning cartoon Tawny.
Right.
Just boom in the middle of Kingdom Come. Like,
yep. Not sure it's going to work.
Yeah.
Like, especially if he talked.
Oh.
Yeah. Call me Talkie Tawny, guys.
Yeah. This isn't, something's off. Now, so okay, it sounds like you're a fan of, shoot, I never have to say his name, but you're a fan of Kurt Busiek. Busiek. Have you read Secret Identity?
Yes, the Superman book where the kid is like his parents name him Clark Kent.
Yeah, but
like, he ends up being Superman. Yes, I love Secret Identity. That was such a fantastic book.
Like I think I found it when I was first getting into like really reviving my interest in the DC stuff, and then somebody mentioned that like I think I had mistakenly read that the Secret Identity Clark Kent was somehow actually Superboy Prime. like I had some wires mixed, and I was like, oh, okay, this is his origin. Then I was like, never mind, this is much better than this weird thing that I thought it could have been. And anyway, I'm just,
yeah, that's interesting. I think that's interesting for me. I think quite a bit of the DC stuff on my shelf is, and I don't know what this says about me, but most of it is Elseworlds type tales.
No, I have a similar
like
library there. Yeah.
I think I collect Marvel runs and DC Elseworlds.
Yeah.
There are a few DC runs that I have, but they're not much really. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Although
I personally only have I think the Death and Return of Superman as an omnibus. It's like my only like main major run, I think. The rest are shorter things, but
I have an affinity for that. I was the right age for that to be a big deal.
Yeah.
So and I I had the I still do. I just need to take them out. Some of the few single issues I have, but the issues they released as the different Supermen were coming out, like Steel and Superboy, and they had the front cover had the S diamond cut out, and you would open it up and it had the full page splash with that Superman in it. Oh my gosh, I thought those covers were so great.
Yeah, it's absolutely worthless now, but just the emotional value of it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I maybe put it down a bit too much, but I actually do enjoy going through just how ludicrous all of it is. It's just fun, dumb.
Yeah, it really is. It is just kind of it's very much the kind of prototype or prototypical kind of hero event, isn't it? Like it seems like it's a big thing, but like I was just knocked out. Like okay. But I do like all those characters, like the Superman characters.
the best.
I do have an affinity for that run, and just those different characters. And like, I kind of like that DC thing of just like, where's the Superman family or the Shazam family or the Bat family? Like, it's kind of a cute little quirk. I want them to be more whimsical and do stuff like that. So,
yeah,
I don't like gritty DC.
Yeah, I mean, I ate up all the crises. Like, I was tearing through it just because I was. I feel like I don't know if you had gone through this yourself, but the Blackest Night event was on this sort of weird edge of gritty in that the Black Lanterns were all like, oh, we're the dead, everyone that you love that was dead, that's dead now, but we're lanterns now. Right. But then it also had the super campy like, hey, we're a bunch of other Lantern Corps of different colors. Like I think it was a good place, and then after that I was like, I know if we can keep going with this, but I don't.
Yeah,
I
like
you.
I would agree with that. Like Blackest Night was it's kind of like Kingdom Come. It's a fun thought experiment, and I liked the way it opened up more of the Lantern cores, and like the art on it was like really, really good.
Oh yes.
Some of it was, I think, like even though it was super gritty, it had some really like great dumb stuff in it.
Yes.
Like I really enjoyed. Like there was a part, I don't remember. I think it was when Flash had the blue ring, and he was like the Blue Flash, and like he and I don't know if it was Hal. I don't know. He and somebody were running, and two Black Lanterns were chasing them. And Flash was like, hold on. And he ran like 2 seconds into the future.
Yeah.
And then like the rings like just dropped to the ground and like lost the connection. I was like, this is my kind of stupid. Like that is what I need to live.
Yes.
So
the deputization of other characters, like you count. You can be one.
Yeah.
Like just giving, was it Scarecrow got a yellow ring?
Right.
Luthor got an orange one. Like
of course.
Like, of course, Earth is so important that we're going to deputize, a bunch of you folks. But you know what? It was just great. Like, oh,
yeah.
More.
Like that's the great thing about that. I think the emotional spectrum thing was really, really smart, and like it helped. And doing that, like you're saying, like deputizing them, really kind of tied it in to the rest of the DC. As opposed to just like, oh, well, you're just one stop in our big galactic patrol thing. Like, I like the way it tied it all in. I agree that a lot of the stuff that followed afterwards maybe wasn't fantastic.
Yeah.
But
I was like, ooh, Dead Man's alive. Now what? Never mind. Like, who cares? It just doesn't matter.
And that's part of why I can never collect the single issues for most things.
That's when I learned that's when I learned the hard way.
Yeah, we learned those lessons, sadly.
Batman's dead. Never mind.
Nope, he's back.
Here's 10 issues of him traveling forward through time.
And see, that's the thing, like stuff like that, like where it's like, okay, we're gonna have him like, cave bats and pirate bats. Like, even the main DC writers are just like, let's just tell an Elseworlds tale. Like that's what they really want to do.
Batman's dead. Batman's caveman.
I guess what blows my mind with DC just as an institution is like the DC animated universe is so good.
Yes.
Like, Batman the Animated Series and Superman and Justice League and JLU, all that stuff is fantastic. And it is like 100% exactly the tone that I want, like that Saturday morning cartoon feel. Mm-hmm. I want the characters to be kind of larger than life. I want them to be generally good, even if they have some kind of modern style conflicts. But like, for some reason, DC they have this huge body of work right there. And it's like, why don't you guys like just do that? Like they keep not doing exactly that, and I don't understand. And they keep wondering why they fail so spectacularly, and it just blows my mind.
Well, I think I'm not sure about the ratings on this, but I still hear people like regular folks, non-comic fans, talking about the CW stuff because I feel like that's where it landed. I don't know, like Crisis on Earth X? Like, is that what they ended up calling it? Something like that, or Crisis on Earth X, where they did the big dumb comic book event, and people were like, "I just watched that part, and it was fantastic." Like I keep hearing this from normies. Like I don't know. I don't know if that's where it goes. And they.
Well, have you watched any of the CW shows?
I was keeping up with the Flash for a bit, and I felt like they were approaching it a bit. Like, I mean, they put the cosmic treadmill in it, for God's sake.
Yeah. Like, see, my wife and I need to watch some Flash. I think we saw maybe the first 2 episodes. I don't really remember. But we watched Arrow quite a bit. But it just kind of keeps getting, I don't know, each season, after the first 2 seasons, it just kind of keeps getting more disappointing. I don't know if that's the general feel.
I think that's what I've heard too, is that if you want the comic booky stuff, you go for the Flash and I guess Supergirl, Yeah,
I would like to watch Supergirl.
And then Black Lightning's on the horizon, or it started? I'm not 100% on that.
Yeah, I've heard really good things. In comic book Twitter that I'm connected to is really, really positive on it. So
that's good.
Yeah, so I'm definitely interested in checking that out. My wife and I are always looking for new things to watch together. So, but yeah, so I think that's the thing that always upsets me about DC is they keep wanting to. It feels like they keep wanting to do something else. I don't know. I don't know why. It's like what it's the same. I'll continue to bring up Man of Steel until the day I die, but like it's like it seems like the people making these things sometimes don't actually like the characters they're making them for, and like I get that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I want you to just like I want the whimsical guy in his underpants with his cape flying around. Like, just give me stories like that. Not every character has to be Batman, that kind of stuff. But
No.
they don't get the message.
I think you had mentioned this on your podcast, but you have or haven't seen Justice League yet?
No, I haven't seen after Man of Steel.
I would say if you're looking for this, I know, but like we came out of the theater, I was like, well, they kind of leaned into it a little bit. Like, I would say just give it a swing, rent it, whatever it is now. Or like,
right?
Obviously, I don't think it's even in theaters at this point, but I didn't feel. I mean, there are some odd choices for sure, but
yeah,
I mean, give it a swing.
Okay, I might try it out.
Hearing what you want out of it, I got some of it. There's just enough silliness, aside from the mustache, mustache thing. Yeah, I don't know. That's my feeling. Yeah.
Okay, well then I'll probably check that out because the Batman versus Superman stuff that I heard was like,
no, not that. More in Justice League, I would say.
Okay, well then I'll probably check that out. Yeah. Well, what runs are you reading right now? Like what stuff? What's on your mind? What pages are you turning?
Okay, so a lot of it's manga currently. Like that's.
Oh yeah, I forgot to bring up manga.
Yeah, we'll touch on that. But just as a comic related thing, Immortal Iron Fists. I'm big. I love Iron Fist.
Yeah.
Immortal Iron Fist. Shoot, I'm gonna feel dumb. Is it Matt Fraction's run on it?
Yeah, I've always heard the Fraction run is supposed to be really good on that.
Really good. Like at first, I think the first time I ever really thought about Iron Fist was him showing up in Marvel vs. Capcom 3, and I'm like, who's this pirate dude? Like, what's happening here? But then Fraction's run totally turned me on it, and yeah. So Immortal Iron Fist, he's got a I would say you could jump into it as it is. There's a new heir to the Iron Fist that he's sort of training. It's like a 6-issue run. Lots of fun. The art's fantastic. And then Power Man and Iron Fist. I don't know if that one was limited or not. But I would say I think that was running last year or the year before. And it's just Luke Cage and Danny Rand, for better or for worse, having to start up Heroes for Hire again.
Right.
that I would say that's the most recent thing. But changing gears over to manga, if you want, what's on your mind there? What do you got?
Well, kind of classically, I've never really gotten into too many manga other than say Dragon Ball, and a few bits and pieces. And I've read basically Dragon Ball and Fist of the North Star, and that's it.
All right.
And I adore both of those quite a bit, but I'm trying to expand my boundaries a little bit, and so I decided to take on the challenge of One Piece. And I'm currently doing that.
That's why you're. Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, yep. It's one of those things where last year I watched all of Gintama, the anime, in a single year. I started in maybe March, and I told myself I wanted to be done with it by the end of 2017, which I did with a couple of weeks to spare. So after, and that was like a 340 episode show. That challenge was a lot. And I was like, well, that was tough, but I did it. And it made me go, okay, well, maybe I can take on some other big properties like, say, One Piece, which is sort of like, when you talk about manga that go for a long time.
It's a monolith.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm on the other side I'm on the other side waving to you over here. I'm caught up, keeping up with One Piece. I love One Piece very much. So I'm excited. As you go through it.
That's the other thing that I really enjoy about doing what I've been doing with the sort of the reaction threads. So I do those threads on Twitter, and at first I started doing them because when I started with Gintama specifically, I was like, I have got to have something to keep track of where I'm at in the show, because I will probably forget sometimes. And I also just like to do things like that as like a reflective tool, like part of my blogging. And when I do a blog about something is when I used to think of them as longer shows, but like a 40 or 50 episode show or something, I would do a blog about it or something to kind of like help myself process what I just watched. So these reaction threads were a great way to like like at first was just to kind of help me maintain my thoughts over a really long period of time. But then dog is barking apparently. That's enough. Easy. It's okay. Sorry, I'm gonna let that out. But the other thing that I did,
jeez,
I'm so sorry.
No.
But the other thing that's been interesting is it was kind of a fun, like almost like a lightning rod for the community, in the sense that a lot of, and not necessarily because of the quality of the thread, I don't think, but because the Gintama community is really, really positive and full of a lot of really good, encouraging people, and they sort of like piled in on it and would like give me advice or tell me like, hey, you know, there's a couple episodes art coming up, you probably want to watch these together, or, oh, get ready, this is going to happen, or, okay, you made this observation, like, don't worry, they'll go into that later, and that kind of stuff, and kind of help guide me through it. Or they would give me like production insights or like author insights or whatever.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it was really, really cool, and that was a completely unexpected, not that I didn't expect people to be like, oh, hey, cool, you're watching it, but I thought it was just going to be for me. I didn't expect it to be a community thing, too.
That seems like the best way to approach things, is do things for yourself and maybe talk about it a little bit, and then, you know, the right people may come your way on it, and then you end up stealing a bunch of recommendations from people. And
and
a to-do list.
Right? Exactly. Right. I gave myself more work. Yeah. But I think the thing that I was not anticipating was, because I specifically did it as a thread, because I noticed a lot of people would live tweet things. And I can't track when other people live tweet things. Like, I don't know what they're watching, and it's just scattered. But the thread serves as this kind of big, kind of almost like
I may
archive, I guess.
Aping that. I like that. There's some stuff I want to get into, so I'm going to copy.
Yeah. Feel free, because it's been awesome. And same thing with One Piece. I've started reading the One Piece manga, and I said I'm just going to read a chapter a day. And that's still going to take me 20 years to finish, but One Piece... Oh, sorry.
I mean, I feel like you're... maybe at some parts you're going to decide to pick it up a little bit more, or, you know... Right? Man cannot live on one chapter a day alone. Come on.
That's my favorite verse of the Bible. Jesus told the truth. That is why they hated him.
One chapter of One Piece. Oda knew. This is Oda Sensei. Doing it.
But the One Piece community has been just like the Gintama community, in that they have just been like people just coming out of the woodwork and just like they're heaping all kinds of great positivity my way, and they're just going, hey, this is awesome that you're reading it. And like, so it's hard for me to, I think the great thing about it is it's kind of hard for me to separate in a good way my communal experience from the reading experience. And that's something very different for me. So usually you just read comics by myself in my room. It's been really great, and I'm really enjoying One Piece. I can see why it's a phenomenon. It's really, really good right out of the gate. Like, Oda's art style is so expressive, and all of his characters look like Muppets, but like in a good way.
Yes. Like,
they're all just these sort of, there's a physicality to them, and sort of this sort of adorable quality to all of his art that's just, it's very infectious. I love it.
Yeah, that's why I kind of like wince whenever I see somebody complaining about One Piece's art. Just like, come on, that just means you don't get it, man. You just... there's a magical moment. Like, it's as early as chapter 1 that I wasn't seeing. No, I you know what? I'm guilty of this from when I first saw some promo with Luffy making that face and giving a thumbs up. Like, he made like just the stupid face that's very Luffy appropriate. But in the moment, I think I was coming off of Naruto or something. I was like, what's this? Foolish. Immature. But there is a moment, I think, in chapter... I think it had to be chapter 1, when I noticed that some of the Sea Kings that were like, this looks like something out of Disney. This looks like something out of Disney. Like, there's this more cartoony look that's definitely Oda's, and that he owns and develops as you go along. That... for whatever reason, when I first saw it, I wasn't, mature enough to really get that or pick up on it. And I think I think I've seen you see something along the lines of that. Is that, you getting that feeling, that vibe? Yeah,
definitely. I think that definitely tracks with my experience so far. And I think I think the thing with Otis art is that it doesn't, I don't think as a still image it really works in terms of like if you just see like somebody puts an anime wallpaper on their computer, like as a still image, like all of his characters, that Muppety look to them, they just kind of at first blush, you're like, like it just looks like kind of poorly drawn characters. It's when you see them move and shape and express panel to panel to panel to panel to panel that you realize like he can get so much out of his cast. Like that's when you're like, this is an incredible work. Like, wow, the characters are so like they're obviously in this, as my co-host put it, he has a certain style and he has a certain range that he can do. But what he, in terms of like kind of character types, but like what he can do with his cast is just so impressive, and he gets so much out of them, and they're so interesting to watch them emote and react and talk. It's really, really great. I'm totally loving it. So
fantastic.
So I only read throwaway shonen manga.
What are you talking about? What?
I just mean like nothing high art, one would say. It's all Dragon Ball and Hakuto no Ken and One Piece. It's all just long punch mans.
That's like, I mean, come on, man. There's a phrasing that's just right. There's a reason that these things are still around.
Sure.
Right?
Definitely.
Yeah. And then there's a certain amount of reach that Dragon Ball, specifically Dragon Ball and Fist of the North Star, have had, and the influence that they've had. Was it? I keep seeing this about Devilman, but Devilman being like a cultural touchstone for other things. Those are massive shonen sources of influence, right?
Yeah, like definitely.
So I mean, if this is Otis, One Piece is definitely like a Dragon Ball, a child of Dragon Ball. Right? Oh
yeah. So. I would agree. I was sort of joking that I'm not reading high art. I'm reading people punching each other, but I do, and I've gone on at length about this at other things. But I feel like Hakuto no Ken specifically is, if you like anything in the shonen action fighting genre, it owes something to Hakuto no Ken, which is sort of like, not only did it crafted the mold and it broke it all in once. I really don't feel like there's another work that's better, but I'll go to the mat for it every time. Tetsuo Hara's art specifically is just incredible. It kind of has, and of course Kentaro Miura of Berserk fame is inspired greatly by Hakuto no Ken and Tetsuo Hara's work. But like Berserk, it is incredibly difficult to animate because it is so gorgeous, and it's difficult to make those characters move because they are just so meticulous.
Gorgeous?
Yeah. Right? Well done, sir. But yeah, no, I love them quite a bit. But there's also a lot of, I think, variety in comics in a positive sense right now, in terms of just like, I see so many different imprints, and I'm just like, completely unaware of, both in U.S. comics, and there's all sorts of manga that I really obviously haven't touched on. It's a great time for sequential art, I guess, as you would say.
Yes, absolutely. And I would say, like, just as based on what I'm hearing from you and the kind of stuff that you like, I'm sure this recommendation has come your way already, but hearing the passion you have for Astro City, My Hero Academia is definitely in that love letter to the superhero, like the big two optimistic superhero genre. Like, I'm sure you've already heard it, but I gotta get it in there, and then I would even argue here that Hero Academia is a child of One Piece in a way. So something that's in there.
Yeah, I've seen the first season of the anime, and I really, really liked it.
Fantastic.
I haven't watched season 2 yet. I need to. That's like one of my biggest shames of last year, was that I didn't get a chance to watch it. But it's really fantastic. I just love the heart in it. I think the cast is, for a show that, like, the cast and the setup, at least obviously the first season, and I'm sure the manga goes in crazy directions, and season 2 looks like it really took off. But like, for a show that pretty much is by the numbers, it's, kids with special powers that go to school, there's going to be tournament arcs, they've got villains to fight and all that stuff. Like, it doesn't surprise you in the plotting or the framing, but it surprises you in how wonderful the cast is. I think that's really its strongest. Like, there's so much heart in that cast. It's hard not to just want to see them succeed over and over again.
Mm-hmm. And you, I think at when you first encounter some characters, you're even kind of put off by them, some more than others, but you still want everybody to do well.
Yeah,
there's
definitely
a hope in it, an optimism in it, right?
Mm.
That
it definitely fits my brand. I'm all about the optimism.
Oh yeah.
I can get plenty other emotions from all other things, so I go to my comics and stuff for optimism.
Yeah, to get a taste of hope. Yeah, I don't think I'm still on a palate cleanser from Devilman. I'm still like, let's do other things. Let's do some other stuff.
Me too. We're going to talk about that this weekend, and I'm still kind of like processing it. Oh, that was such a, I actually put that on Twitter. I asked people, because people kept telling me, that they watched it all in one sitting, and I was just shocked. I was like, I can't. It took me like a week to watch it because it was just so heavy. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah. I'm gonna be upfront and say I did it in 2 days, but it wasn't like sort of by choice a little bit. Like, I had, well, maybe it was 3 days, but I had told my sister about it.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, oh, okay, cool, I'm gonna check this out. And then so she watched 1, and then the next day she watched the last 9. And then I was like, well, I can't let her get ahead of me.
Jeez.
And so I went from was it I think at the time I was going into 5 or 6, and then I just barreled from 6 to 10. Yeah, it was an evening. It was I was laying down and I wanted to lie down even more.
Just sink through the bed.
Yep. And then I've said this elsewhere. I didn't, but I'll say it here just because it's great. We were at lunch on Saturday. We went out to lunch and we were talking about it and we're joking. Oh, remember all this stuff? Hey, you see all the stupid memes? We're laughing pretty hard. She burst into tears. She just started. We're in a restaurant. She just started crying. Like,
oh no.
I'm like, I'm sick, so I just started laughing at her crying, and then my mutual friend is sitting there. She's like, what the hell just happened? My wife comes back from the bathroom like what's going on? And I said, we were talking about Devilman, and things just sort of but
you're a monster. No.
Yeah, a little bit, but you know what? I feel like we're somehow better for having gone through this. Like,
yeah, definitely. I think it was a good watch, and it was good to see. I mean, I'm a Yuasa fan.
Yes.
And it was interesting seeing him work on a TV budget with such a sort of iconic property, and I think the best thing about it is that it's visibility combined with the risk it takes. I don't know if it lands everything, but I think a big takeaway is that people are watching it and people are talking about it, and it's not a work that you can watch and then not have a reaction to. Like you don't just go, I don't remember. Like Devilman, which one was that? Like you don't just like.
You're gonna wake up at night thinking Devilman.
No. So I like that. I like when people are. I'm a big proponent of. I don't necessarily I would say people have to necessarily like deeply think about everything that they watch. I understand there's consumable media because sometimes we need a break, but I think it's really important to be cognizant when you engage with what you read or what you watch or what you listen to. Even if you admit to yourself, I'm still just enjoying this because it's disposable garbage, but to engage with it in a meaningful way and hopefully talk about it on some level. And I think this is one that you can't not do that, and people will do that. And I think that's really important for the fandom, so to speak. Yeah.
And then people engaging with it, putting that critical thought maybe for the first time. Like somebody, this might be like the first time they've really had to think super hard about what the hell they just experienced. Like maybe even put pen to paper and go on and share that experience, burst into tears at a restaurant about it.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
shared trauma. Encapsulated shared trauma. Like,
that was too long for the title. They went with Devilman Crybaby instead. But that was a production title.
Got it.
But I think and it makes me want to go read the manga, which is important too, just to kind of like experience that. Because I'm a fan of going to guys like Mazinger work, which I'm more familiar with. But the guy's got he's got a rep and he's got a style, and I would like to enjoy more of his works because he's so foundational to a lot of the people that I respect, a lot of the creators that I enjoy. I'm a big fan of doing that sort of creator chasing where you're like, well, who inspired this guy that I like, or who inspired this lady that I like, and like going through their past and like seeing what impacted them and why. I'm a real big fan of that.
Yeah.
So
that's a good way to put it. Yeah, I'll let you save the rest of that for your guys' further
we're gonna
discussion of it.
We are gonna unpack it for do our thing and unpack it for like an hour and probably still not cover all the things we want to say.
Yeah.
And I'll probably have to write a blog post or something about it too to get some other ideas out, because even if we split it evenly and I only talk for 20 minutes, there's just not enough time to say all the things I want to say.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to that.
Well, good. I'm glad. I mean, that's definitely, it's one of those things, not to just turn this into a preview for my pod, but I think you always try to make the show that you want to hear in some sense. And I don't know how to put this. So like so many other shows, I'm always so impressed with, their ability to do like incredibly in-depth research and have like production insights, and like they have so much like technical knowledge, and I'm always blown away. But then in sharing that takes a lot of runtime, and I don't say always, I shouldn't say always. Like there are times when I wish maybe the reviews were a bit meatier. So I think that's kind of what we try to do, because there's no way we could ever know as much as some of the people in the various because we dip our toes into a couple different fandoms, and people just know, God, they just know so much. They're just walking brains full of just this huge amount of knowledge that like I could spend the next 10 years trying to match that, and I can't. Yeah, so we try to
real Encyclopedia Browns.
Exactly. And like in a legitimate sense, not just in a, hey, we went and memorized the Wikipedia page, but they go to cons and they do interviews, and they get photo books and stuff from Japan, or they get articles translated, and they like such impressive work, and like important work too, to bring that information to the community. But it takes time to impart that. So we eschew expertise in favor of just sort of running our mouths for an hour. But sure. I think we, if nothing else, we at least attempt to review for a much longer runtime than most people are dedicating to the review type segments. And for better or worse, we talk about those things for a very long time.
You know what? But that's the beauty of the podcast format, is that it's there for the people that are willing to listen and commit to this or do something while committing to it half-assedly, which is kind of what I do. Like I was running it while playing Yakuza, like just beating up dudes. Snowblade looking thieves. Oh man. I don't want to like overdo it with us or having you on here for I don't know.
I don't even know what
like. It's already past 10 over there, I think. But I don't know.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I can go for a little bit longer if you still want to talk about some other stuff.
Sure. I mean, I want to be broader about this, so I'm down to. Let me think. I guess we could talk Toku a little bit if you're interested.
Yes.
Yeah. If you could somehow keep that to it. No, it's fine. So you're mainly a Sentai dude coming from Power Rangers? Is that...
Yeah. Like most people, I shouldn't say most people. Most people in my cohort, I was
I think that's a bad word.
No, cohort being like a group of people at a certain kind of age, or like, say time strata of fandom, the kind of early 90s fan.
Oh, no. I was thinking we're on a, I think I need one more buzzword and I've got bingo, but.
Oh, you know me, I love my jargon. But no, I was, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, I don't remember when, but I was the perfect age for Power Rangers when it hit our shores, and so I have been addicted to that for a very long time. I fell off with it. It was sometime around early Zeo, maybe. I definitely was long gone by the time Turbo hit, and they had cars. And then, of course, I could tell something was off about it, but then I knew through kind of playground talk and then, middle school and high school and stuff, learning that, oh, that actually comes from a bunch of Japanese stuff originally. I was like, oh, that's neat. That's interesting. And that makes a lot of sense. And then in college, some friends gave me, of course, the thing is, I never really liked to torrent. Like, torrenting is a weird thing for me. I got burned a lot back in the day, where I had trouble like, wow, I just downloaded this whole thing and it's not what I thought it was, or the quality's really bad. And so I was like, what's the point of wasting all my time? I'd rather be playing games during that time instead of using my bandwidth downloading stuff that I don't know what I'm getting. So a couple friends showed me a few episodes and I really liked it, but I never had a complete series. And then
I'm sorry if I think I interrupted before you said.
I'm sorry, of any Sentai. Like, I'd seen some Zyuranger episodes.
Oh, okay.
So which is the Super Sentai that Power Rangers is based off. So for a long time I was just a just sort of relapsed Power Rangers fan. And then a couple years ago, around the time when 2015 or 2014 or something, whenever the talk of there being a Hollywood Power Rangers movie started coming out, I was like, that stuff's on Netflix. I'll start doing a rewatch. And so I've been rewatching Power Rangers ever since, chronologically, just going through the series. I'm at Ninja Storm now, so I'm about 12 or so years into the franchise. But and of course seeing stuff that I just have never seen before. But in doing so, I started to go, you know what? It's 2015 or 2016. Like, it's probably easier to get Tokusatsu stuff now. And of course, I was always a big fan of Godzilla films and things like that, and Gamera films. But then I started to realize, wait, you can actually watch, like, at the time, I don't know if it's still the case now, but you could watch Ultraman on Hulu. I was like, are you kidding me? So then I started going, I just started going down the rabbit hole, and now I've watched a couple of Ultra series, a couple of Super Sentai series, a few Kamen Rider series, and I've seen a few like short clips, but I haven't watched any of the Metal Heroes series, so that one's still kind of opaque to me. I haven't gone in there yet, but I'm mostly a Sentai Ultra guy. I like the hope and the optimism type stuff. But I'm a huge fan of that. I love practical effects. Practical effects are just like I love watching real explosions, and even if they're maybe not the best quality, like real models with real strings, like going around and fighting people in giant rubber suits.
I love how much they sell it, like the angle and then maybe the frame rate or however they frame it to make it. They sell it like. I mean, if you squint, if you look real hard, those buildings are way too wide. Like the streets are way too wide, and there's no cars in the street. Fine, but there's a magic to it that they are still able to pull off, especially with Geed. Like I was like, wow, geez, man, like
it's Super Eye Productions that does Ultraman and stuff like Gridman and things too. It's one of their hallmarks is definitely the really, really well done sets. Even though I love Sentai too, Sentai sometimes likes to cut corners and be like, well, they're just going to have a battle out here in the woods again. Whereas Supro likes to do the really detailed city sets, almost movie quality type. And I just love all that stuff. And I'm a big fan of the, because Tokusatsu also includes, it's special effects filming, but it usually includes things like Godzilla and Gamera and all that. I'm a huge, huge fan of the Heisei Gamera trilogy specifically, which is
you're the one that made the recommendation, right?
Yes. You can.
I've only seen one of them. I got it for my dad for his birthday, and whenever we go back, we're like, all right, it's time to watch one. He's tired, but. Yeah, you need to watch that series. I think. Yes.
Just as a general rule, I think there's a lot of really great. Obviously Godzilla is the king of the monsters and has some of the best films ever, but in Kaiju Ega. But the Gamera Heisei trilogy is, it's incredibly important for that character, but it's also just a really important trilogy, just in terms of what it means to me for a Tokusatsu film, like in a Daikaiju film specifically, that this adherence to practical effects and the emotional weight of what's going on. I know saw some tweets from Hideo Kojima saying that these films are like a religious experience for him. and I don't like, and it seems silly, but like I've watched them, I don't know, 4 times all the way through maybe at this point, and I need to watch them more because they're just so good. And the special effects coordinator on that is Shinji Higuchi, who he worked with Gainax and all that. Like, he's actually the namesake of Shinji Ikari from Eva, because he did storyboarding work for them and stuff too. But he's the special effects coordinator on those films. He also did I think originally started on Return of Godzilla and he was uncredited, but he worked on that. But he did like the special effects work in the Attack on Titan films. He did the special effects work in Shin Gojira. He was the coordinator of Air 2, and I think it was a co-director with Anno. But Higuchi's work in those 3 Gamera films it's just kind of peerless. Like those everything from the suits to the sets to the pyrotechnics and stuff. It's just beautiful, and on top of being, I think, good films in their own right. But that's one of those things that those are really easy recommends, I think, just because you don't really have to know anything about Gamera. It's just you just kind of like, hey, cool, a flying rocket turtle. Let's do this. And
I think when we were watching it, the first one, like, there's some level of violence that you kind of expect, or it's just okay. There's some wanton destruction will occur with a giant monster. But there was a particularly malicious scene that struck me when Gyaos just picks up a train full of people and derails it and then drops the train car, I think, just in the middle of the street. And I was like, holy crap! Like, I get that it was eating people. That part makes sense, but it didn't need to just. Well, it's a giant monster. That's what you're gonna get. But
right.
This thing is evil. This thing is definitely evil. Like,
well, by the time you get to the 3rd film, there's a battle, the opening battle in Shibuya in the 3rd film that is pretty chilling. Actually, it still kind of gets me every time. It's not as much as I like to talk about the hope and optimism stuff, Gamera is not defending the Earth much in that first battle sequence. But those films are very well directed, and that kind of embodies part of what I love about just practical effects. And I think the great thing about them is that practical effects, I tend to think they age like wine. They hold up over time, whereas CGI tends to age like milk. CGI, think about a movie you saw, 10 years ago and you thought it looked gorgeous. It looks dated now, like horribly dated.
Yeah.
So I think I'm okay with some obviously the Ultraman television series, they use a good mixture of the two, but the practical stuff is what stands the test of time. Even the bad stuff, I think bad practical effects look better than bad CG, or even good CG if it's old enough, because your mind auto adjusts to it. And I think just things having weight, it's really satisfying to see things that actually obey the laws of physics, just because they have to, even if they don't necessarily obey the laws of, say, 100-meter tall lizard physics, which is a ridiculous thing. They follow some kind of physics, and it's great to see that, like, on screen. So I'm a huge proponent of those films, because I think they are some of the finest practical effects work ever done.
There's something that you can just sort of respect about, even if you can see the seams on it, or you can see the zipper on the suit. There's something to respect about how they are still able to convey the size or the weight of everything that they're showing. Right? Like,
exactly.
They sell it on you so hard that you're in, for a second, maybe you get pulled out if something seems off, but very easy. It's so easy to get sucked back into it, or because of how it moves, or how it's wired to look that way.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, but I think that's always the thing with Tokusatsu, is the best stuff is there's a commitment. They commit to this thing and they make it happen. And you're like, God, this is ridiculous, but I'm enthralled and I can't stop watching.
Yes.
And that's a really great feeling. And I think that's especially because live action stuff in the US, for lack of a better term, doesn't really, we just don't have any tradition like that anymore. That's either as silly or as focused on the practical, especially because you usually have one of the advantages of having suit actors is that you can have regular actors acting and emoting, and then you can have suit actors who actually can fight in the suits, making those fights look good.
Oh, yes.
As opposed to watching, most television or Hollywood actors don't know how to fight, so they have to do a lot of like quick editing and stuff to make it look like they're fighting, and it just is not satisfying. So,
that's a pretty good point. And I've thought about suit actors, and I'm so like, I don't have names committed or anything, but to have that distinction where you don't necessarily need to pull that off in Western media or Western superhero media, where you kind of want, like, what is it? It's sort of one of our needs is to see the person's face a little bit, like,
right?
To be able to identify that that's the person under the mask, even though it's supposed to be secret identity sometimes. That's just a major difference. I don't know why that exists, but that'd be interesting to explore.
Yeah, there's also just kind of the general, I'm sure, actors don't want their faces covered. Sure. Nobody wants that. Yeah. So
maybe we're cooler with it now, but maybe.
Certainly. Even characters like, say, Iron Man. There's all those shots with Robert Downey Jr.'s face inside you get the HUDs. The HUD has up display, so you can get as much screen time as possible for those actors. So I'm sure that's part of it too. But I really enjoy all of that, and it gives me something that I can't get really anywhere else, and so I appreciate it for that. I still get to be 6 years old and watch that stuff.
That's fantastic. I got an aside on the sort of origin or jumping into it stuff. So I was actually born, and I lived in Japan for a few years before I came to the U.S.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Okinawa specifically. My pops was stationed in Okinawa, but I had some Sentai stuff, and I didn't know it was Sentai. I didn't have that distinction yet because I'd seen it on TV and I had the toys, and I can't remember the name of it, but I can't remember if it's the first or second Megazord that they use, but it's the Megazord from Die Ranger.
Yeah, that's it's the Thunder Megazord for Power Rangers. Ryu. Hold on, now I'm trying to remember. Now I gotta Google it. I can't remember. Ranger. What is the?
Yeah, the big.
Sorry, keep going.
Spear, right? He had the spear.
Oh, the red, just like the Red Rangers.
No,
robot?
complete. It was complete. Like, I swear he still had the spear when he was in it, but no, he had a sword. Here, right.
Yeah, in Die Ranger they had the kind of the samurai sword.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Well, it was the Chinese style sword, right? Like.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it was a Chinese style sword because they were all Chinese martial artists. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, well, I was just clarifying because I had it, and then even though they used it in Power Rangers, it had the 5 it had the 5 Die Rangers in the chest, and I didn't when I was watching Power Rangers and I was into it, I was like, what? Like, why do they have the wrong ones in here? Like, I can see it in the chest. I'm like, this is not what I'm seeing on TV. What's up? And it wasn't until years later when clips of Kiba Ranger screwing around on a skateboard on YouTube came up that I was like, oh, that's why he looks different from it's this whole other thing. That's what it is.
Dairen O. No, is that it? Dairen O? Is that right?
Maybe.
Now I can't recall. Phooey. Yeah, Dairen O. Okay, that's what it is. Yeah, Dairen O. Sorry, I had to know. It was going to bug me. Yeah, no, that's such a weird thing, and it's funny because we, sometimes hear that in Power Rangers fandom or something like, oh, it's so dumb that like the Blue Turbo Ranger was a kid, but then years before in Die Ranger you've got Keeper Ranger who's also a child,
but it was White Ranger, everybody's favorite, whatever.
Yeah, some of that stuff has aged quite poorly with the little kid. Some of that stuff in Die Ranger, having just rewatched it last year, I was like, oh, this is bad. Like, this is not good stuff.
Granted, it was it was late 80s, right?
It was 90. Well, it's 92 or 93.
Whoops. Yeah.
No, it was 92 because I want to say last year was its 25th anniversary. Because they're about, it's a whatever Power Rangers is airing Sentai's on the season ahead of that, so to speak.
Okay, that makes sense.
So 92, I guess, was when Z-Ranger dropped, or the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers dropped. So I guess Die Ranger would have been 92 as well.
Got it.
But yeah, 25 years ago, you can't judge it by the same standards. But still, it's a recurring thing that happens so much. It's like I can't avoid it. It's kind of like I wish this wasn't here.
This is you're too accurate. I was a child. I was a horrible child in the 90s. With wind powers, but anyway, yeah, that's Sentai. That's Tokusatsu for you.
But yeah, I always recommend Toku to people because it's not like, I guess it's always the reverse of how I think a lot of times people try to sell, say, like anime on, oh well, it's like this from Western media, like like, oh, My Hero Academia, well, don't you like X-Men? Or, oh, Cowboy Bebop, don't you like action movies or whatever? Tokusatsu, you don't have an analog for that, really. No. You're just like, no, this is something unique and you can't get it anywhere else. And if you buy into it, like, you'll love it.
That's a really good way of putting it. Well, the only lead-in you have is, did you like Power Rangers? Well, maybe.
Right, of course. You have the Power Rangers, but even Power Rangers here in the West is like...
That's still connected, like...
It certainly is, but also like of all the nerd stuff that is part of the, I don't know, I want to use another bingo word here, zeitgeist, but is part of the pop culture consciousness. Like Power Rangers is still a weird side thing. Like if you walk in, like you would probably walk into your work and say, "Hey, I've got a Batman shirt on under my tie and button up or whatever," and people are like, "Oh, cool, Batman." But if you walked in, you're like, "Oh, I got my Red Ranger shirt on today," they'd be like, okay, what? Like,
I don't know, man. You can buy those things at Hot Topic now. Like,
yeah, I mean, I'm not the movie and all that.
At Target, for goodness sake.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's certainly better than it was, but Power Rangers still has a kind of this. Well, that's really for kids. Like like Superman and Batman are for kids, but like really, Power Rangers is for kids. Like it has that kind of stigma to it. So. Even comparing it to that isn't much.
To be fair, Sentai is the kid-focused show.
Oh, sure. I mean, it's to sell toys. Like, I'm not lying. But I'm saying you normally you're going to connect it to things that are considered to be slightly cooler or more adult, like with anime and manga and stuff like that. You're like, oh, well, it's like this other cool thing you love, but you wouldn't want to sell Toku on its Power Rangers connection. Like, you would not make that connection. You'd be like,
I guess
oh, look at this cool thing.
You would want to pull away from it. Yeah, because with those other ones, like you're making comparisons to maybe more adult-oriented media, or even just trying to highlight that aspect of it. Yeah, it's like Attack on Titan getting as popular. Yeah, it's like super violent. Like you like cartoons, it's like super violent cartoons. Yeah, you're right. This one is like, hey, this is gonna get super cheesy, and you're gonna love. You're gonna eat that up, like
yeah. But you don't want to lead with it's like Power Rangers, because that makes it harder.
Yeah, it's true. I have made that mistake. I just put it on now. I don't care.
Yeah. Are you? What all is your sort of typical Toku love? Like, what's your favorite flavor?
It's Kamen Rider through and through. I've been the most thorough with it, and for years and years I was drawing like what I thought was Mortal Kombat dudes, like doodles, and it turned out it was probably actually Kamen Rider. Like I think I had seen it, but I didn't realize what it was. And it was like, I was like, it's like Power Rangers, but something's not quite there. Like I like so much about it that like, yeah, they're gonna probably team up. Like with Sentai, you're kind of guaranteed to team up almost immediately, more or less, right? But with Rider, you got like, here's a dude you're gonna see for like 10 episodes, and then another guy's gonna show up and they're gonna like fight. They're like, yeah, maybe we'll team up because the monsters are the bad guys, but I'm too much of a jerk to work with you. Like there's this ego thing that I just gets me the right way about it. And maybe that's why Geed worked for me, is that or what was appealing about Geed is that you have Geed, and then you also have
Ultraman Zero.
Yeah. You have Zero show up, and he's like the cool guy. Like he's like, this is the writerist I'm sure that I've seen, and that's fantastic.
Yeah, he's definitely a chatty, hot-blooded shonen hero type compared to normal Ultra. But yeah, you're right. It is like having two writers is definitely a standard thing, but having two main Ultras was kind of weird. We don't usually get that, but it was more writer-like, and I think it was better for it.
Yeah, I just wish. And then with the Neo Heisei stuff, they just keep dumping more and more. I mean, it can be a mess, it can be fun, but just having the butt heads like that. Like my first Rider series was Kabuto. Like
okay.
I don't know how much you've seen of that, or
I have all I have seen other than some clip stuff is I've seen all of Double. Well, I should say all of the regular episodes of Double and the first movie. I haven't seen the second movie, and then I'm probably going to finish Kamen Rider O's in the next week or two. So that's all I've got for Kamen Rider. I'm not super fluent yet.
That's fair. I'm just happy that you're jumping in.
Yeah. Give me some Karate Bugmen.
Yes, more Karate Bugmans. But yeah, if you want a series with egos, I would argue that the story's kind of meh. But the fun of it is that like the egos are like times 1,000 that
right.
Oh my goodness, like Rule of Cool is abound in Kabuto. Like there's the confidence that some of the characters have that's either warranted or unwarranted. They deliver or they don't deliver, and it's great for that. While looking like a badass.
Right.
Yeah, man. Awesome. I'm looking forward to I guess you wrapping up O's and then maybe whatever the next one you end up picking up.
Yeah, I think it'll probably be Forza because I'm
You're just
like
going.
with everything else. I'm just letting other people decide what I should watch. I'm like, look, you guys know, tell me what to do, and once I get more fluent, I'll dive out. But I'm probably going to do Forza, and then after that, I'll jump back into Sentai because it's been a while since I've watched anything in Sentai. So I'll probably watch Tokuger maybe. I don't know. I'm a big fan of transforming trains.
Are you going to do the weeklies for Lupin Ranger versus Pata Ranger?
That I haven't decided yet. I kind of want to. The show looks really, really good.
If you're interested, I wouldn't mind doing like a weekly review thing on it.
That'd be kind of neat.
Just to get me through, because I've never finished a Sentai series. I'm sorry.
Oh. How dare you?
I've started Shinkenger, I started Dai Ranger, I started Q Ranger, I have all of Tokyoger, and I just haven't committed to it. But Lupin Ranger looks like it could be the one that does it. Like,
looks so good. I'm a big fan of sort of trying to model my consumption at least off the intent. Like as a kid, I would watch an episode every afternoon, coming home from school or whatever. So I try to watch about an episode of Toku a day if I can. Like through the week, I'll try to watch an episode today if I can. And that's a good pace. Like I think people maybe sometimes burn out, like when they have the full catalog of something. They're like, oh, I'm going to cram 10 episodes in tonight. And it's just too much. Like it's just not meant to be viewed that way.
Need some time for reflection.
Or just time away, because it's a lot of the same stuff. Like you're going to watch the same transformation. Like, do you want to see like the same transformation 10 times in one night? Probably not.
That's what's superior about Rider series is they drop the we don't need to end it with a giant robot every time, guys. That's where the fatigue comes from, I think. Like sometimes they do, and I appreciate the episodes where they don't. Like they're just like, we didn't need it. Like we just kicked his ass. Like we didn't need the giant part.
The thing for me is that I think it's an extra layer for variety, and I agree. I think it's probably best when they don't feel like they have to do it every time, but it gives one more other thing to do. So I enjoy that, and the scale and all that. I get in 20 minutes, I get a little mini Godzilla movie. I dig that.
Yeah, all right. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, I think maybe that'll be the right approach. Is one a day. Maybe that's how I'll finish Dai Ranger.
Just
finally
watch it. Watch a couple of weeks. Just tell yourself, look, I'm going to watch 3 a week. I'm going to spend an hour of my life because it's 320-ish minute episodes, about an hour. Like every week I'll try to watch 3, and you'd be surprised that like keeping a schedule like that is the same thing with my little reaction thread things. Not to keep plugging those, but
no,
but setting a mental schedule for things. One that's maybe slower than you would normally pick will, I think, helps you not burn out so quickly. And that's like, it's super easy to burn out on stuff these days because there's too much. There's just too much of everything.
So you're telling me to not binge something, and that is just completely backwards for what everybody everywhere is saying to do about everything.
Yeah,
and
and
I think that's the right approach. I think I will attempt that.
I mean, I don't know if I'd call it the right approach because some people, they work for culture blogs or they have YouTube channels and they have to have the hot take. They got to be ready because otherwise you get lost. But I tend to be in the tortoise and the hare situation. I tend to be a tortoise kind of guy. Take my time, get there when I get there, and I think I find more value in that, and I find it more enjoyable than just like I just don't want to. I don't feel like I have enough time to enjoy something if I'm going to just rush through it. Like it doesn't stick with me as much. I don't remember it as well. So
that's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying that it hasn't worked yet, and maybe this will be the one that'll be the way to do it for me. So I mean,
it's a good looking show. Yeah. I'm excited for it.
Yeah. Oh boy. But yeah, I mean, I'm down for this. If you're interested, I'm proposing some kind of
that might work. Let's see. I've got a couple of pies, fingers and pies, or pies in the oven, or hot irons on the pies. I don't know how this goes, but I got a couple things going on. But there might be something we can do. Definitely hit me up.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good. Let's start closing this up. But if you want to make like we strayed super far from comics, but you know what? That's okay. I was interested in keeping it going. It's getting late. So, give me a top 3 and throw a Toku in there while we're at it, since we spent like half the time on it. Give me a top
3, Astro City, Kaiju Max, and I'll say anything IDW Transformers. You probably can't go wrong with that. Right. And if I'm gonna recommend a Toku show, my Toku show recommend. I guess it depends on the flavor. But I'm gonna say whatever the currently airing Ultraman is when you hear this, whatever the latest one, just go watch it. I mean, because it's got to have good shelf life. My usual recommendation is if people have fond memories of Power Rangers, go watch the corresponding Sentai season from when you were a kid. Ooh. Because you'll be able to say, oh, I remember like these suits, but now I'm seeing them in a different light, or, oh, I remember this. Maybe I remember this fight, or like, oh, these characters are different. And that's fun. But not everybody has Power Rangers experience or necessarily views that positively. So just go watch whatever Ultraman is currently on, and you're probably going to be fine. It's great.
Nice. I thought I was almost, I was going to put money down on you putting the Gamera trilogy down as your rec, but.
Well, look, that too. I talked about that for a long time.
No, you only did one. You only get.
Oh, man. Okay.
No.
Yeah, currently airing Ultraman is a good general recommend because like you can watch for 20 minutes and walk away from it. So the Gamera trilogy I think is best viewed as a trilogy, even though it wasn't produced as a trilogy. And that's a fair time commitment, I think.
All right, awesome. And so people can follow you on your handle on Twitter at GrantTheThief.
Yes, sir.
And I'll put a link to the Blade Licking Thieves podcast.
I appreciate that.
You can check that out. Not sure how many people are actually listening to this, but you know what? Just in case.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. All right, man.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, Pat.
Yeah. Thanks, Grant.